Welcome everyone to the Baruuk builds refresh. Now, obviously, Baruuk was incredibly strong before the changes to exalted weapons, and that is not going to change. In fact, Baruuk is somehow even stronger than they were before, even though they took a little bit of a crit nerf getting here. That being said, we get to use Blood Rush now, so a crit nerf is not really that, and if his crit stayed the same way, it would be pretty hilarious. Before we get into the build, though, let's talk about the shards, as I normally do. First and foremost, let's have a Tau parkour velocity on here, purely to taste, not necessary at all, does not change the build. Do what you want with this slot. The other four, however, are gain 37% melee critical damage when max energy is over 500. The damage boost doubles. We have 855 energy, so this is 300% additional critical damage, which is kind of a lot. So these do change what I am running in the build, and we're going to talk about what I would use instead if I did not have these shards in, as I imagine most people will not. Before we get to that, though, let's talk about the actual build, because things have changed just a little bit here. Unshockingly, we are going to, well, shockingly, we're going to be using melee influence, so we get to run Archon Stretch now. We ran Stretch in the past. Getting to run the Archon variant just means we're going to get some energy regeneration, which is, of course, very good for Baruuk. Otherwise, we're on adaptation for survivability, and this is really overkill, I would say. At most levels of play, this means that you're just actually factually completely invulnerable. I will say, if you are going to do like level cap runs or whatever, this probably wants to instead be rolling guard or catalyzing shields. Catalyzing shields, of course, to combine with our augur, so anytime we cast, we're invincible for at least a second. But for most levels of play, you're just going to use this. I will say that this build, if you're just going to do circuit level cap, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Baruuk does not care what level the enemies are. They die all the same. Other than that, we have a ton of strength. We're on a 199% strength base for all of our abilities, and then we get the additional 90% strength for our 4, meaning we're on 298 for our 4's a power, which is incredibly good. I will say the 199, we are still running Theros Strike. This is a 99% defense reduction. I am running Corrosive Projection to not only soften up all the enemies that I am not going to be hitting with Theros Strike, as this is only for like MVP targets or VIP targets. This is mostly actually here for its heal at this point. The defense strip usually won't matter. It's, you know, it works on Babaus and stuff, so that's something. It'll get rid of their shields and all that. But for the most part, not really a big deal to be running Theros Strike, kind of just like a really small add to what Baruuk is doing, as you cast it very infrequently. We are on Reactive Storm for Baruuk's 4, because this is just an absolute ton of status chance, and it's fixed now, thankfully, to not mess up all of our elemental combinations anymore, which is great. And then we're, of course, on Fleeting Expertise to combine with that Archon Stretch for a good amount of efficiency to counteract that Blind Rage, and we do want our duration to be lower, so that we can use Lull more continually, especially on the same enemies over and over if we have to. Other than that, I mean, our Augur Reach is giving us just a little bit more range. That is, of course, is for Lull and is for Desolate Hands, so that they can work at better ranges. We're on PSF just so that we never get knocked down, because being knocked down sucks. And then we are on Fury and Strike. Fury, of course, works and is triggered by our 4, and same for Arcane Strike. 180% melee damage. Pretty hard to find that much melee damage. Very good amount. Arcane Strike, also 60% attack speed. Pretty hard to find. Really good amount. So yeah, this is what is up in the main build. Nothing too different from what we've run in the past. Now, the Desert Wind build, though, if you wanted to do the previous build that I showed, which is like the gas slamming build, it looks like this. This is still very, very good. You add melee exposure to it to make the numbers even funnier. You get to run Discipline's Merit, and things are all well and good. Usually you're going to run the Naira mod like we did in the previous build instead of Adaptation if you want to do this for even funnier numbers. But, of course, the Influence build is much better at general clear, and this still does more than enough damage to take down like disruption targets and such like that if you need to, though I find Baruuk is a little underwhelming at disruption, as you're usually not, in a group at least, able to cast your 2 on big enough groups often enough that it's comfy to carry around your 4. I will say, one of the weird things in this build that's different from other Influence builds is that we are on Galvanized Reflex and Focus Energy instead of our dual stat. The reason for that is because we want to be at 90% heavy attack efficiency, so we can heavy attack when we want to, not just when we're doing Tennokai. It means we can also utilize slams as necessary, which I prefer. The other reason that Galvanized Reflex is in here is because we don't really need more damage, so instantly getting access to about half of our total combo is very convenient. You could replace Galvanized Reflex if you wanted to. There's a number of different things that can go in here. Easily, it could just be Organ Shatter. Organ Shatter, probably better if you are not running those purple shards that I'm running, because I really do not need more critical damage than I currently have. I'm already at a 9.2 crit multiplier, so it's just not necessary to go higher. Speaking of that, I'm also running Sacrificial Steel. If you're not running the purple shards, you just run the Galvanized Steel mod. Pretty much just as simple as that. You lose a little bit of crit, especially on your heavy attacks, but you gain 120% critical damage. So critical damage goes here, and this is also critical damage. And then that's where you are if you are going to be running this without the purple shards. Otherwise, we get to, of course, get into higher crit tiers with Sacrificial Steel. And a Galvanized Reflex is just like here for convenience and making our build just kind of work at a faster rate, basically. So it is all well and good, and it is absolutely ridiculous. Of course, instead of a stat stick, as we used to run the Vertilac, we are now on the Praetos just for going fast, because we don't really super need another melee weapon whenever you could punch enemies with Baruuk's hands. With that, we could run up here, just drop our 2, drop our 3, turn our 4 on, and get to punching. So we got to 5x combo, technically, because we killed 4 enemies at least. This is the reason why I am running the Reflex mod, because usually it takes about 1 punch and everyone dies. So yeah, these are, I assure you, they're level 230 Steel Path enemies. So, it's just what Baruuk's up to, really. I mean, it's not that different from what we were doing before. This is just enough damage in a much more convenient radius coming out of our single punches. And it's very, very, very good. I don't know that there's really anything else to explain. We're going to use our 2 to build up our restraint. We're going to have our 3 on for the damage reduction and to build up our restraint. We're going to use our 1 if we ever feel like we need to. And then we're going to stay in our 4 as much as possible and kill everyone to death. Pretty much where we're going with this one. And I don't really think there's much other explanation to be had. Let's head into Tav and do a crime. All right, heading straight into Tav. Now, I know for all of you, it is April Fool's Day. My apologies that there is no jokes, only the significant death that Baruuk provides. Only the significant death that Baruuk can provide to us. Oh, a thing I did not mention that I guess should be obvious. We run Naramon now just to upkeep our combo on our 4. Another reason, though, to run Galvanized Reflex is that if your 4 ever drops, you do instantly lose all your combo, which is really inconvenient. But that is what happens. Throw our 2 out and get to punching. Turn these guys into energy so I can turn them into restraint. I mean, murder juice. Yeah, so one of the problems Baruuk will have, as you can see, I'm just like doing consecutive regular punches down these hallways, is if you go too hard, like if you use your heavies and stuff too much, the thing that will occur is actually that you will kill enemies too good, which is a thing that Baruuk can do. That is unfortunately a problem that Baruuk has. It's so unfortunate for him. And if you are killing enemies in 1 strike and the electric procs are not killing them, influence does not go off. So you do want to, like, just kind of let it happen. You just got to punch them. Like, follow-up punches can, like, kill them before you would want to. You also don't want, like, any of your big high multipliers usually on enemies that are this low level. So, yeah, we're just kind of trying to mitigate that and let everything do a murder that way. You can, of course, just, like, go ham with it if you want to, but, like, the heavier strike that has a higher multiplier on Baruuk's stance will sometimes make it so that you will not properly, like, proc your influence, which is a little unfortunate. But really, it's not that unfortunate. It doesn't matter that much. You're still killing every single person you're punching, so how bad could it really be, honestly?
I've delivered a life support capsule to the area. Activating it will buy you more time.
It was a really bad cast of my 2, because our 2 is line of sight. We're finally at 12x combo. Just a million damage, just for nothing. I will note, like, hey, because we're running Discipline's Merit, which is really not needed for the build, you can actually totally cut it from the punching build. But because we are running the ability just to have free heavies, Whenever the Acolyte shows up, yeah, they hate this. They're not a fan. It's also worth noting this is like one of like the worst tiles for Baruuk, but I'm kind of hanging out in it anyway. Just to like show the up and down like verticality of influence and what's that is kind of providing to us. Because it is very, very nice. Yeah, you can see we're at like 270 kills, even though we're on like a bad tile set for Baruuk on purpose. Or not a bad tile set, a bad specific tile for Baruuk. The tile set is quite nice. If I just stayed in the original hallways I was in, that does quite a bit for me, actually. But otherwise, needing the enemies to like group up like this most of the time. Also, most enemies won't ever like get there. Like, they won't receive the privilege. But if you actually touch them with Baruuk's palms, it kills everyone that's ever been born in their family line. So if an enemy ever needs that from you, that's a thing that you can get up to. So, you know, just if an enemy's really being squirrely with you, you can touch them with your actual hands, and they can meet God. That's just a fun little effect that Baruuk has, in addition to his other abilities. But yeah, like, I mean, the waves are crazy. Like, influence to getting like the big range through walls that you can get is like extremely, extremely good. Just like getting like the up and down range that we have. I mean, like, you can see like the basic attack damage numbers we're outputting here, right? You have eyes that can witness the crimes that are being committed here. Is this even needed to like be explained to like, oh, this is good? Because like, this is just, you're seeing the raw damage numbers. You're probably not even noticing like the proc damage that's occurring. Because the proc damage is not lower. Like, first and foremost, most important bit, the proc damage, the electricity, is more damage than the actual me hitting them. Where's Torment at? I have no idea. There's Torment. You died kind of on accident. Sorry, Torment. Innocent bystander. Wasn't even really aggressive with me, honestly. What did Torment ever do wrong anyway? They just show up and try and kill us. Are they wrong? Maybe we're the baddies. Yeah, in terms of survivability, like with like the generation from Augur Reach, anytime we cast an ability, like it's Jover. Like, it does just will not matter. We can generate pretty well. I will say, outside of solo, because you don't get to like manage the enemies as much, you can have more trouble managing your meter because of like your teammates killing a lot of guys very well. Not really a problem because it's not like you're going to be in danger because your 3's amazing, but can be a little annoying to manage your meter in a group sometimes. Usually it's not a big issue though. Oh, at 5 minutes we're at 644 kills. I probably should move to a better tile set for Baruuk, honestly, which I guess we will do now, because this one's like on the weak side for what we're up to. Probably just move towards the exit, see if we can't get a nice tile for Baruuk to be up to. That is, of course, like, still a really good kill rate. This tile's like a little bit better. Obviously, oh wait, no, actually not obviously. This is the test that was not the one I recorded for Gara. Gara in this room is ridiculous, for those of you that watched the recent Gara video. She is an absolute nightmare for enemies in this tile. I actually think that Baruuk will have a bit of a disadvantage in this one as well. You kind of want flat areas as Baruuk. Like, flat hallways where you can punch like at least like 3 dudes is generally what you want to be on about. Obviously, the act of like finding a new tile is like functionally lowering your spawn rate. So that's never very helpful, because you got all the enemies following us from the previous tile, and until they are dead, they're just like taking up space in the spawns, of course, which is never what we want to see personally. Yeah, this tile has a very good spawn rate for the Warframes that can do damage through walls. Obviously, it's not too bad for Baruuk. Our waves are like a little generous, like they're kind of like a soft line of sight-ish. but there are some hard checks for them. A little bit of bouncing around here, catching up a little bit on spawn rate. The enemies get in here. Oop, went the wrong way. Surprise, everybody. Happy birthday. Come back over here. Wipe out these groups once more. Yeah, the amount of punching that you have to do is, like, so significantly less than before. It's kind of, like, crazy. Like, just a couple punches into a group, and, like, you can just walk away. Like, they are already dead. Like, unironically, like, omae wo mo shinderu type shit. Like, the damage is just so immense. And obviously, we're, like, doing only, like, solid red crits, pretty much. Like, for the vast majority of hits, they are just red. They obviously can't be below orange unless we lose combo, which, that is not my goal. That is not my intention. Max out on meter again, of course. Yeah, I mean, these enemies stand no chance. And the truth of the matter is, if there's a group of enemies, if they're not all immune to status, they stand no chance. Like, at any level of enemy, you're probably not going to need, at full combo, more than 4 punches and a heavy attack to kill anything that doesn't have attenuation, pretty much. Like, pretty much, like, if it has attenuation, obviously it takes a certain amount of time, just like, that's just what it does. Goodbye, Misery. Misery got the heavy attack, that's brutal. But, like, things don't live through this. Like, this is so much raw damage, and its influence, and its AoE, and I'm invincible. Like, functionally invincible, anyway. Had to cough there, apologies. Just about at 10 minutes here. Cough sneaking up on me. I guess by virtue that I can pause to cough, kind of tells you just how safe I am. Like, adaptation is probably overkill. If you wanted to replace it with, like, some people like Streamline, if you feel like the energy economy is not quite good enough, if you're needing to spam your 2 and your 3 a little more, maybe. For me personally, I feel like the 2 and the 3 are quite cheap, especially with the addition of Archon Stretch. But that's 10 minutes, 1271 kills. I don't think we hit, like, if I'd stayed in the original spawn, we might have been able to spike it up higher. But I mean, 120 KPM is incredibly good for a Warframe who's, like, functionally completely invincible and, you know, just insanely high damage. Like, if you can do any piece of content with Baruuk, he's an ETA, EDA, all-star. He needs nothing, especially now. Like, especially now. Like, it used to be that you'd want to run, like, the Naira whip for the extra slam attack damage, but that's just completely superfluous. But yeah, that's Baruuk. Go. Do a crime. It's not like anyone can stop you anyway. Hey everybody, it's time to thank the patrons that are hanging around and supporting the channel. So, start with that. The $10 patrons are Atheon, Alex Farnham, Arbiter Daydream, Barkus, Benuven, Plotomatic, Brutus Salazar, Candelathra, Glob World, Dylan Dworsky, Athrain, James Harsthorn, JC4 Science, Josh, Luzanth, Nicokel, Michta, Nerve, Ruby, Sanyu, Sharp247, The Coupon of Death, Waifu Wars, Wodad01, and Zeraphir. Also, thanks, of course, to all of the other patrons for supporting the channel. It is much appreciated. It's a little sneak peek on what we're getting into. There's going to be a lot more of these kind of big re-reviews of weapon types and their new builds and stuff, as things changed a lot at the end of last year. And of course, there's also planned new free-to-play before we get into any more big updates. So look forward to that.